English translation, 381st contact, Thursday, 3rd March 2005, 23:53 hours.
That is also done. I see on the screen you are working on another special bulletin.
Yes. In this one, I want to publish a part of our conversation of the 24th of February, the part about insanity and schizophrenia. But I also want to publish an article by Bernadette, which she wrote in response to a telephone attack on me. This one, if you want to read it.
Of course.
Ta reads Bernadette's article.
Prejudiced know-it-alls and pathologically stupid.
In the 376th contact conversation of 3rd February Special Bulletin number 17, page 2, Ta warned Billy about the defamation of various sides. The proof that secret services and authorities, among others, were behind this could still be provided in the same bulletin. In the efforts of authorities, secret services and other governmental organizations in this regard, there is a certain fear behind the attacks on the one hand, for they know very well what Billy's words and teachings could do if they were heard by the broad masses. But on the other hand, there is also a certain logic in their undertaking, for they must not let what is not true be true, and everything that could become dangerous to their own power must not be true. The situation is different and much more incomprehensible in the case of those private individuals who, out of pure pathological stupidity, out of prejudiced know-it-allism and other primitive and base reasons such as envy, jealousy, and sheer nonsense, launch such attacks against Billy and his mission, for these human beings are under no external constraint. If they were not too stupid to get their gray cells working a little bit, and to fight against their own primitiveness and foolishness, to slowly develop an eye for the facts, then they would have to realize, full of shame, what folly and foolishness they are displaying in their thoughtlessness and reprehensibility. But since their brain mass is apparently already so rotten that the time limit of their simple-minded material life is already their highest achievement in consciousness, such insights and knowledge will probably be a long time in coming. The proof that private prejudiced know-it-alls and morbidly infantile ones of lowly intelligence sound the same horn as certain governmental organizations and sing with them the song of slander. Bottomless stupidity and insidious malice was provided by a certain Mr. Singer by telephone last Saturday, 26th of February, 2005. This Mr. Singer, who presumably called under a pseudonym, because these kinds of people are generally too cowardly to reveal their real personal details, and who is supposedly a German citizen, which by no means says anything about the consciousness-based qualifications of other German citizens, dictated the following words to his interlocutor in his unbridled narrowness. I have long been familiar with the internet site of the con man Billy Meier, and I want to say something about this. I have come across old writings by the Schutzbach brothers which testify and prove that Billy does not write all his books himself and only copies them from other books he has, many hundreds of times. This action is criminal and an outrageous impertinence and should be punished because this is theft of intellectual property. I do not understand how you can just leave this Billy guy scot-free. And how could an uneducated person like this Billy Meier also write such writings and books as he allegedly does? Also, the large number of his allegedly written books is so large that he could never have written them himself, because no human being could write so many and partly thick books in such a short time. Because just working through and correcting such books several times until they are really finished always takes a very long time. Everything is supposed to have been written by the deceiver only since 1977 until today, which is simply impossible. What nonsense. The man is an imposter and a megalomaniac who should be locked up, as thieves who steal other people's intellectual property should be. Singer, Germany.
So much for the words of Mr. Singer, who with his thoughtless and quite obviously uninformed words has revealed himself to be a singer of primitive, low intelligence and almost in malicious thoughtlessness, pitiful human beings who have to deal with such intelligence beasts on a daily basis. Obviously, Mr. Singer, who presumably considers himself to be of considerable greatness of mind, is inferring from his own consciousness-based and literary abilities that he has those of other people. His standard seems to be his own yardstick, which is so low that even a halfway normal person would not be able to stumble over it. It is not only that Mr. Singer refers to the old writings of the Schutzbach brothers, whose lack of objectivity, mumbling, and fallacies have long since been proven, but also that he has quite obviously read neither books by Billy nor by other authors who deal with similar topics. I, for my part, have been given Peter Ustinov's widely acclaimed bestseller Prejudices as a gift last year and have honestly fought my way page by page through his supposedly profound wisdom. In the process, I discovered that I have rarely read a book of greater banality and meaninglessness. Anyway, I was delighted to be able to revive my consciousness, my psyche, and my admittedly modest intelligence with the beautiful, substantial, and profound wisdom in Billy's books, which are so completely different from the books Billy actually has in his possession 100 times over, because they are usually so trivial and meaningless. Non-fiction books, like encyclopedias, etc., that it is not worthwhile to study them, because it is simply a pity about the time when one could do better and more clever things. That Billy, on the other hand, as many witnesses, and I in particular, can confirm, never has to revise his writings and books, that every word and sentence he writes is immediately perfect, and that not the slightest illogicality, inconsistency, digression, uncertainty, or banality can be found in them, is clearly beyond the comprehension of a great mind like Mr. Singer. With his claim, he only proves that he has never read a book by Billy, and he consequently reveals himself to be uninformed, prejudiced, of pathological low intelligence, and pre-logical in his thinking. However, as far as Mr. Singer's verdict on Billy's level of education is concerned, his insolence clearly reveals him to be a singer of arrogant know-it-allness and foolish. Mr. Singer never met Billy personally. He knows nothing about his background, nothing about his literacy, nothing about his education and training, nothing about his company, his friends, and his life, and yet he presumes to call him uneducated. All those who take the trouble or have taken the trouble to really get to know Billy, and who are familiar with him, know him as a highly educated, circumspect, far-sighted, clever, well-read, and versatile human being with whom any topic can be discussed in depth. He does not talk in platitudes. What he says has hand and foot and can be proven in every respect and at any time. Inconsistencies and stupidities do not come over his lips, neither do empty phrases and hackneyed platitudes. To his normal circle of friends and acquaintances belong people of the highest hierarchical levels of our society, such as doctors, professors, well-known managers from the economy, university pastors and priests, members of the government, diplomats, etc., etc., all of whom are not too shy to ask for his advice and listen to it. They talk and discuss with him as with their peers. If we were to name Billy's friends by name, poor Mr. Singer would be in awe of so much education. Billy's modesty and his loyalty and integrity do not allow him to brag about these names and bask in their glow, nor to boast about his education. Nor would he ever ask these people to out themselves as his friends, to vouch for his honesty with their names. He has no need of such chess and checkering moves, for they are far beneath his dignity. But now a word on the subject of criminal liability in particular. When creatures like Mr. Singer call our office and attack their interlocutors about Billy, or in internet forums and in writing, and feel they have to pour their filth over Billy, they usually do so anonymously or under a false name. This is because they know very well that it is they themselves who make themselves liable to prosecution under the code of law through slander, libel, and malicious insults, and who should be locked up for dragging other people's good name and honorable blamelessness down in the dirt and trampling on their slobbering injustice, stupidity, and pre-logical infantility. A behavior that they would never put up with themselves if it happened to them as it happened to Billy. Humans of the caliber of a Mr. Singer still have to learn a lot, and certainly in many coming lives, long and hard, before they will finally be far enough along in their development that they get beyond the stage of prehistoric creatures and really deserve the designation human. The following is written in Mr. Singer's family register, because he is supposedly one of the regular visitors to our website and one of the loyal readers of our publications on the Internet. For 30 years, it has been proven time and again, and without exception, that it was precisely such primitiveness and poisonousness that led Billy and the Figu to unexpected success time and again. It is precisely because of such baseless attacks that intelligent, educated, honest, and honorable people are prompted to take a closer look at us, which usually also means that they support us all along the line and are helpful to us in every respect. In this regard, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Singer officially for his prejudiced know-it-all attitude and his pathological stupidity and say to him, "Stay as you are, then Billy will be successful in the future." Oh yes. What I almost forgot to mention is that when Mr. Singer dictated his tirade to the alleged Figu telephonist, he had no one else on the line but Billy himself, who with a quiet grin wrote down word for word what he was told to pass on Bernadette Brand, Switzerland.
Like you always say, low intelligence knows no bounds. As does this man Singer, who reveals his own low intelligence. But if you allow me, I would also like to say a few things about Bernadette's really very good remarks, which I would like to address to the readers of the special bulletin.
There is no question, dear friend. Furthermore, it will be a great honor for all of us Figu members if you personally address our readers via a bulletin.
Thanks. Then I want to explain the following.
To all those sensible who read my words.
Unfortunately, our very dear friend Edward, that is to say Billy, is attacked again and again by nonsensical claims, lies and slander in order to defame him and make his difficult mission impossible. This is happening more and more frequently again, as is shown periodically by irresponsible elements, and which also happened on the 26th of February 2005 by an alleged Mr. Singer from Germany, about which I would like to take a stand from my side in the following wise. Billy. Eduard Albert Meier is an honorable man, who is irreproachable with regard to his integrity and all human values. He is neither a deceiver nor a swindler or charlatan, nor does he allow himself to lie and slander, just as he does not allow himself to call books or other written works his own, if they do not correspond to his own thoughts, ideas, and works. All the many thousands of A4 pages densely written with machine and computer are his own work and his consciousness-based property, from which since 1977 until today, about 40 books, 366 spiritual teaching letters of about 55 A4 pages each, as well as many articles have been published in the thrice-monthly magazine Aquarius Time, in many bulletins and special bulletins, in addition to a series of small and larger brochures and several thousand A4 pages of unpublished spiritual teaching works, which have found their way into our own ranks. And this he did in addition to his heavy manual work, which he did until 1984, despite a serious health breakdown in 1982, often closer to death than to life. But also, before and after that, he was tirelessly active in writing, managing the association, and other activities important to the association. Edouard Billy is modest and never made a fuss about his achievements, although he is also insensitive to praise, because he considers his entire commitment to the human beings on the earth to be a duty and a matter of course, which is why he refuses to accept any thanks. That he is thereby slandered for all his goodness and for his untiring efforts by malicious people, which he does not even hold against the liars and slanderers, may well be more than what a normal human can cope with. By this I mean that a person who cultivates his or her thoughts and feelings in the usual manner of earth humans would no doubt be shattered by what Billy takes on and bears without accusation and without hatred, anger, bitterness, and enmity. Many great humans walked the earth, the ancient prophets, Emmanuel, Buddha, Muhammad, and many wise men and women who became known or remained unknown. But also the modern times brought forth again such a man, namely our friend Edouard, who is known worldwide as Billy and as the proclaimer of the modern times, and who is probably the most valuable of all proclaimers and wise men who ever walked the earth and raised their word in wisdom. But as it was with the old prophets and wise men, they were harassed during their lifetime by the unreasonable and know-it-alls, as well as by envious, jealous, and delusional believers in order to prevent their work of truth. Some of them were physically and psychologically tortured, and finally murdered. Edouard, too, was often threatened, for 21 assassination attempts on him today bear witness to the fact that even in modern times, truth is still unpopular among the earthlings who, as it has been since time immemorial, still walk the path of corruption. The behavior of the liars and slanderers against the herald of the modern times, Edouard respectively Billy, I classify as a pathetic, mendacious libertine, and as the embodiment of infamous scribbling, which every human should refrain from if they are sensible and strive to be a true human and a valuable member of society. It is very regrettable that even in the highly advanced modern age, and despite the enormously acquired knowledge of the earth humans, irrational and indecent elements of all kinds can still carry on their infamous, irresponsible and dirty behavior without being held accountable for it, and without being decisively instructed in the correct behavior for which, in principle, governments should be responsible. If the healthy norm of decency were taken into account, then elements who, as a result of envy, hatred and jealousy, etc., are able to behave in a disgraceful manner, would no longer find any possibility to engage in their dirty behavior. This would also apply to this man, Singer, who in my opinion was too cowardly to give his real name and address. May his own stupidity and shame teach him a lesson. 4th March 2005, Ptah.
That, dear friend, is all I have to say about the primitive attack on your person and integrity.
Ptah! Your words in the fallible one's ear, but I do not think that all those fools will heed them who believe that they must attack. Denigrate and deny others with lies and slander as a result of their envy, know-it-allness, hatred, and jealousy, for their low intelligence and foolishness allows no rationality and decency. This will continue for a long time to come, for there are too many who live in this manner of lying and slandering and insulting to be quickly taught otherwise.
Which you are, unfortunately, right.
Then I have these faxed pictures and faxed letters from a certain W. Eberly of Germany who, he says, was on the Duist board of directors with Annie and Karl Veit. What do you think about that?
Let me read the letters, reads the letters, and looks closely at the faxed pictures. What this man writes seems to me to be nonsensical, And not only because I consider the pictures to be manipulation in the wise that they were taken at night or in a dark room with a photo camera, where a long exposure time was used to produce the blurred light spots, but also because the photo camera was moved when the exposure time was long. A very well-known act of falsifying such pictures, which are supposed to represent any UFOs. Besides this, it has to be said that since the time of our contacts with you, since 1942, we have monitored the airspace of Switzerland, but also of Germany until today very exactly, and could not register any such flying objects, which would have been of extraterrestrial origin on the one hand, and of this kind on the other hand. Seen to me, these are clearly artificial light sources which have been captured on film in the form I mentioned.
I thought something like that because similar images were brought to me by Dr. Jonas from Vienna when he visited me in Hinwil in the early 70s. At that time, I went with him to Einsiedeln Abbey, where I could watch at close range how he took his ghost photos by setting the camera to a long exposure time and then moving the camera slightly when taking the photos. Also the German, what was his name? He lived somewhere in Württemberg, forged alleged UFO pictures with car lights and hand lamps, which he took at night and in dark rooms. The result was exactly the same images as the ones in front of you.
I know all that. You caught the man himself cheating when he wanted to produce such pictures here in the center at night. His name was Seifert.
Yes, exactly. Then here's something about 2 zinc supplements. This one, the Cura Zinc, you have already analyzed and recommended to me because it is the best product on the market for this purpose. Now I have received these 2 capsules of 2 other supplements, and I would like to ask you if you could analyze them immediately.
Why?
If the supplements are any good, they would be much cheaper than the Cura Zinc. You know, our wallets are not worth millions.
Understood. Well, I have to get back to my flying apparatus for analysis because I cannot do it here. You can come if you want because it takes at least half an hour to do the analysis.
Actually, I should be doing my work here.
Then keep yourself busy here while I remove myself and do the analysis. As I said, it will take about half an hour. Here I am again, my friend. The analysis is done. The Cura Zinc is still the best product of the 3, while the other 2 supplements are of inferior quality and not very recommendable.
Thank you. Can you explain how much zinc a person needs daily and how important it is, together with vitamin C, to strengthen the immune system?
Vitamin C alone is not enough to strengthen the immune system because various other vitamins as well as minerals and trace elements are required in sufficient quantities. A very special factor besides iron, cobalt, copper, manganese, fluorine, and iodine is zinc, because these substances are of particular importance for an intact immune system. The human body contains about 2 to 3 grams of zinc, whereby the important significance of this substance in the zinc balance is largely unknown to non-medically educated humans. Even those who consciously try to eat a healthy diet usually have no idea of the importance of this substance, especially not vegetarians and vegans. As a rule, it is not easy to cover the daily zinc requirement with food, as is the case with vitamin C, other vitamins, minerals, and trace elements. The daily zinc requirement of humans can be broken down as follows. Adults from 20 years, burn 10 to 11 milligrams daily. Teenagers, 16 to 20 years, 10 to 11 milligrams daily, children. 1 to 4 years, 3 milligrams daily. children, 4 to 8 years. 5 milligrams daily, children 8 to 11 years. Daily, 7 milligrams, children 11 to 14 years. Or 9 milligrams daily, children 14 to 16 years. 9.5 milligrams daily, infants 0 to 5 months, RAC 1 milligram daily. Infants 5 to 12 months, RAC 2 milligrams daily. Pregnant women from the 4th month, 10 to 13 milligrams daily. Nursing, 10 to 14 daily. Sometimes even more than 20 milligrams to take in the daily necessary amount of zinc is as problematic for humans as it is with regard to vitamin C and other vitamins, as well as trace elements and minerals. Today's food is so poor in these substances that people have to consume them with special products if they really want to cover the needs of all substances to the full extent. For the daily need of zinc, for example, it would be necessary to eat 5 kilograms of vegetables because they are very low in zinc. If one wants to cover their needs with cheese, they would need half a kilo of it every day. With meat, for example, 300 grams of beef liver would have to be eaten, etc. Stress, such as sport or strict physical work and illness, usually require an increased zinc requirement, as well as increased vitamin C and all forms of vital substances. The trace element zinc is also vital, because it is contained in all organs and cells, which cannot exist and survive without the necessary zinc requirement. Especially the skin, hair, and testicles, as well as the bones, teeth, liver, and muscles, are dependent on the daily zinc supply. Like various trace elements, for example, iron, copper, chromium, cobalt, fluorine, and iodine, etc. The human organism cannot produce zinc itself, which is why these substances must be supplied to the body. Normally, the organism absorbs the zinc into the blood via the mucous membranes of the small intestine. Excess zinc is primarily excreted via the liver and kidneys. Zinc is not consumed by the organism, as is the case with fat and carbohydrates, for example, because this trace element supports the work of the enzymes, after which it is used for other tasks, unchanged. Healthy people excrete very little zinc via the kidneys, which in itself is stored in the organism in only small amounts. About 3 milligrams of zinc are lost from the body every day through bodily excretions, such as sweat, stool, and urine. Without zinc, humans are not viable, the reason being that zinc controls the function of more than 200 enzymes. These are proteins that are involved in practically all important reactions in the entire cell organism, which control the course of metabolism. They also control the breakdown of alcohol and regulate fat and sugar metabolism. Zinc is also of further importance because it is also responsible for the regeneration of the mucous membrane and for the health of hair and skin. It also has an effect on hormones, which cannot develop without this trace element. Without zinc, however, even the vital insulin cannot be produced and stored. Insulin, in turn, is responsible for supplying the cells with blood sugar. The male hormone testosterone also needs zinc, which regulates the male reproductive organs, the maturation of sperm, and fertility. The metabolism of vitamin A is also dependent on zinc, among other things, which is directly related to good vision, even in the dark to a certain extent. If a zinc deficiency becomes apparent, this can lead to so-called night blindness. Also dependent on zinc are the sense of taste and smell, but also the process of blood formation, which would not exist without this trace element. The function of zinc in relation to the strengthening of the immune system has already been mentioned. All areas of cell growth and tissue are controlled by zinc, which is therefore also responsible for cell division. Basic repair functions of cells and tissues cannot function without the necessary zinc supply, just as the necessary proteins for all life processes cannot be produced. Zinc also protects the cells from damage, just as zinc ions also inactivate the free radicals. Zinc deficiency can have extremely negative effects on humans if nothing is done about it. First of all, there is a general decline in well-being, which in turn leads to a decrease in performance and an increasing incidence of colds. Tiredness and fatigue increase more and more, whereby slowly also the skin and hair become problem factors, while wounds heal more and more slowly and worse, and even ulcers of the lower legs can appear. Weight loss is also sometimes associated with this, as is a change in the sense of taste, which means that different foods can be eaten together even though they do not fit together in any wise, such as meat and berries, etc. A decrease in appetite also occurs, as well as psychological upsets such as depression and a lack of drive and lust. Of course, the sense of smell is also affected, as well as ultimately the entire organism, whereby chronic diseases can occur, for example rheumatism, intestinal and liver diseases, etc. Diabetics are particularly at risk. Particular signs of dangerous zinc deficiency include growth disorders in children or adolescents, wound healing disorders in adults, hair loss, depression, psychic changes, behavioral changes, changes in the sense of smell and taste. Dry and scaly skin, weight loss without any recognizable reason, skin tears, tears around body orifices, night blindness or dark vision disorders, and susceptibility to infections. Vegetarians and vegans are particularly at risk for zinc deficiency because fruit, salads, vegetables, and whole grain products contain relatively very little zinc. In addition, oat flakes and wholemeal products, for example, worsen the utilization of zinc by the organism because they contain special substances such as phytates, which are harmful to zinc utilization. This is the most important thing to mention with regard to zinc.
Thanks. That is more than I expected.
That should be enough for today, because I now feel like challenging you in chess.
I would be glad to. There we go. Here's the game.